The oak tree's rough bark dug into Amara Cole's wrists, the rope biting deeper with every futile twist of her body. She stood tall, her tailored silk blouse now streaked with dirt, her dark eyes blazing against the fading Georgia sun. The park, usually a quiet haven in Willow Creek, was now a stage for chaos. Red and blue lights pulsed from police cruisers, their sirens silent but menacing. A crowd had formed, a mix of shocked townsfolk and emboldened agitators, their phones raised like weapons, capturing every second of the spectacle. Amara's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the sheer absurdity of it all. She, a billionaire diamond magnate, tied to a tree like a criminal from some bygone era, accused of stealing a necklace she'd designed herself. It had started an hour ago, outside the town's only jewelry store. Amara had stopped in Willow Creek on her way to Atlanta, her sleek black Mercedes a stark contrast to the dusty pickups lining Main Street. She'd entered the store to check on a custom piece, a diamond necklace worth millions, one of her company's signature creations. The clerk, a nervous young man with darting eyes, had mistaken her for a thief the moment she touched the display case. "You can't just handle that," he'd snapped, his voice loud enough to turn heads. Before Amara could explain, he'd called the police, his words dripping with assumption, some black woman's trying to steal. Officers Daniel Holt and Michael Reed arrived within minutes, their faces set in stone. Holt, the older of the two, had a reputation in Willow Creek for keeping order, which often meant targeting anyone who didn't fit his narrow definition of local. Reed, younger and eager to prove himself, followed Holt's lead without question. They didn't ask for Amara's ID or listen to her calm explanation. Instead, Holt grabbed her arm, his grip bruising, and muttered, "We know your type." The crowd outside the store grew, whispers of thief and worse slithering through the air. When Amara demanded her rights, Holt's face twisted. "You want rights?" He sneered. "You'll get tied to that tree." Now, here she was, bound in the town square, the rope a cruel echo of a history she'd studied but never imagined living. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, some shouting in her defense, others hurling insults. A teenage girl, her phone trembling in her hands, streamed the scene live, her voice cracking, "This ain't right." She didn't do nothing. Amara caught her eye, nodding slightly, a silent thank you. But inside, her mind raced. She wasn't just Amara Cole, the woman they saw. She was the CEO of Cole Diamonds, a self-made titan who'd built an empire from nothing, her name synonymous with luxury across the globe. And yet, in this moment, she was reduced to a stereotype, her worth invisible to those blinded by prejudice. Holt paced in front of her, his boots crunching on the gravel. "You thought you could waltz in here and take what ain't yours," he said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "We don't tolerate thieves in Willow Creek." Amara's voice was steady, cutting through the noise. "I'm no thief. That necklace is mine. I designed it. Check my ID. My paper's anything." Holt laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Papers? You think we're stupid? You're not walking away from this." The crowd surged, a mix of anger and curiosity. A man in a flannel shirt shouted, "Let her go," but was drowned out by another yelling, "She probably stole that fancy car too." Amara's jaw tightened. She'd faced racism before subtle slights in boardrooms, skeptical glances at galas, but this was raw, unfiltered hatred. The tree, the rope, the accusations, it was a deliberate message, a power play meant to humiliate. Yet she refused to break. Her eyes locked on Holt's, unflinching. "You're making a mistake," she said, her voice low but carrying the weight of a storm. "A big one." "Reed," standing by the cruiser, shifted uncomfortably. He was new to the force, still green, and something about Amara's composure unnerved him. She didn't look like a thief. Her clothes, her posture, the way she spoke it didn't add up. But Holt was his superior, and Holt didn't waver. "Shut her up," Holt barked, and Reed hesitated before stepping forward, his hand on his baton. The crowd gasped, phones tilting to capture every angle. Amara braced herself, her mind flashing to her grandmother's stories of the South, of trees and ropes and nights that never ended. She wouldn't let this define her. Then, a new sound cut through the chaos, a sharp, commanding voice. "What the hell is going on here?" A woman pushed through the crowd, her presence parting it like a blade. She was in her 50s, with graying hair and a no-nonsense stare, her blazer marked with the insignia of a state investigator. Amara didn't know her, but the sight of her made Holt freeze. The woman's eyes flicked from Amara to the officers, then to the rope. "Untie her." "Now," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Holt's face reddened, but he didn't move. The crowd held its breath, the tension coiling tighter. Amara's heart pounded, but for the first time, she felt a spark of hope. This wasn't over, not yet. The state investigator, Karen Walsh, didn't blink as she faced Holt. Her badge gleamed under the park's streetlights, a silent challenge to his authority. "I said untie her," she repeated, her voice like steel. Holt's jaw clenched, his eyes darting to the crowd, now buzzing with renewed energy. Phones were still rolling, capturing every word, every movement. Amara stood motionless, her wrists raw from the rope, but her gaze never left Walsh. This woman was her lifeline, a crack in the wall of injustice that had trapped her here. Holt finally stepped forward, his movement slow, deliberate, as if to prove he wasn't cowed. "This woman's a suspect," he growled, cutting the rope with a pocket knife. She was caught red-handed. Amara stumbled slightly as the bonds fell, rubbing her wrists, her composure unbroken. "Caught," she said, her voice sharp. "I was browsing my own designs. You didn't even check my ID." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others skeptical. Walsh raised a hand, silencing them. "I want names, badges, and a full report. Now," she said, her eyes boring into Holt. Reed, still by the cruiser, looked like he wanted to disappear. Walsh turned to Amara, her expression softening but not losing its edge. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" Amara shook her head, her voice steady. "I'm fine. But I want answers. Why was I treated like this?" Walsh's lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't respond immediately, instead pulling out a notepad and jotting down details. "We'll get to that," she said. "First, I need your story." Amara recounted the events with precision: the jewelry store, the clerk's accusation, the officer's refusal to listen. She mentioned the necklace, a one-of-a-kind piece from Cole Diamonds, her company. Walsh's eyebrow twitched at the name, but she said nothing, scribbling furiously. The crowd was quieter now, straining to hear. Holt interjected, his voice loud. "She's spinning a tale. No way she's some big-shot jeweler. Look at her." The slur in his tone was subtle but unmistakable, and Amara felt it like a slap. Walsh shot him a look that could have cut glass. "Officer, you'll speak when I ask you to." As Amara spoke, a man in the crowd stepped forward, his phone still recording. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with a determined look. "I know who she is," he said, holding up his screen. "Amara Cole, CEO of Cole Diamonds. It's all over her website." He turned his phone to show a photo of Amara at a gala, radiant in a gown, a diamond tiara sparkling on her head. The crowd erupted in whispers, some gasping, others shaking their heads. Holt's face paled, but he doubled down. That don't prove nothing. Could be a scam. Walsh ignored him, focusing on Amara. Is this true? She asked. Amara nodded, pulling her wallet from her pocket, now crumpled from the scuffle. She handed over her ID, business card, and a letter from the jewelry store's corporate office, confirming her visit. Walsh scanned the documents, her expression unreadable. This checks out, she said finally, handing them back. MS. Cole, I'm sorry for what you've been through. We'll take this from here. But Amara wasn't done. She turned to the crowd, her voice rising, clear and commanding. This isn't just about me. This is about every person who's been judged, humiliated, or worse because of how they look. I'm not a victim, I am a survivor. But how many others don't get to walk away? The crowd was silent now, her words sinking in. The teenage girl from earlier wiped tears from her eyes, still filming. The man with the phone nodded, shouting, Tell MS. Cole. Even Reed looked shaken, his hand no longer on his baton. Holt, however, wasn't swayed. You're all buying this. He scoffed, turning to the crowd. She's playing the race card, and you're eating it up. The words ignited a spark. A woman in the crowd shouted back. You tied her to a tree. What's your excuse? Others joined in, their voices rising, a chorus of anger and defiance. Walsh stepped between them, her authority reasserting itself. Enough. She barked. Officers, you're coming with me. MS. Cole, we'll need your statement at the station. As the crowd dispersed, Amara felt the weight of the moment settle on her. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every black person who'd faced a badge and a rope, literal or not. She followed Walsh to the station, her head high, but her mind was already racing ahead. This wasn't over. Holt and Reed had made a mistake, but it was bigger than them. It was systemic, rooted deep in the soil of Willow Creek and beyond. Amara knew her wealth, her status, gave her a platform others didn't have. She'd use it not for revenge, but for truth. At the station, Walsh took her statement with care, her questions thorough but respectful. Amara detailed every moment, from the clerk's panic to Holt's sneer. She mentioned the necklace, its unique design etched in her memory. It's called the Star of Legacy, she said. 5 carats. Flawless. Set in platinum. I created it to honor my grandmother, who survived worse than this. Walsh nodded, her pen pausing. I'll make sure this gets to the right people, she said. But MS. Cole, be prepared. This town protects its own. Holt's got friends in high places. Amara met her gaze. So do I, she said softly. And I'm not afraid to use them. The Willow Creek police station was a squat, gray building, its fluorescent lights buzzing like trapped wasps. Amara sat across from Karen Walsh in a small interview room, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and tension. Walsh's notepad was nearly full, her handwriting sharp and precise. Amara's statement had taken hours, every detail meticulously recorded. Outside, the night had deepened, but the crowd hadn't fully dispersed. Some lingered, their phones still out, waiting for news. Social media was already ablaze. Hashtags like Justice for Amara trending across platforms. Walsh leaned back, her eyes studying Amara. You've got a hell of a story. MS. Cole. And a hell of a platform. This could get bigger than Willow Creek. Amara nodded, her expression calm but resolute. It's not about me getting attention. It's about making sure this doesn't happen again. Walsh gave a small, approving nod. I hear you. But Holt and Reed aren't just rogue cops. They're part of a system here. You push, they'll push back. As if on cue, the door swung open, and Chief Raymond Carter stepped in. He was a broad man, his uniform crisp, his face a mask of authority tinged with irritation. Walsh, what's this mess I'm hearing about? He demanded, barely glancing at Amara. Walsh stood, unfazed. Chief, this is Amara Cole. She was unlawfully detained tied to a tree, no less based on a baseless theft accusation. I'm taking her statement. Carter's eyes flicked to Amara, sizing her up. Coal diamonds. Huh. You're a long way from the big city. Amara's voice was ice. And yet, here I am, treated like a criminal for existing. Carter's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Instead, he turned to Walsh. Holt and Reed are good officers. This sounds like a misunderstanding. Walsh didn't flinch. A misunderstanding that involved rope and a public spectacle. I'm escalating this to the state level. Chief, you'll have my report by morning. Carter's face darkened, but he said nothing, leaving the room with a curt nod. Amara watched him go, her mind racing. She'd dealt with men like Carter before, gatekeepers who protected their own, no matter the cost. But she wasn't intimidated. Her empire hadn't been built by backing down. What happens next? She asked Walsh. The investigator sighed. Holt and Reed will be suspended, pending investigation. But this town's tight-knit. They'll close ranks. You need to be ready for that. Amara was ready. She'd already texted her lawyer, a shark named Elena Torres, who was en route from Atlanta with a team. Elena had a reputation for dismantling corrupt systems, and Amara trusted her to turn this incident into a reckoning. But it wasn't just about legal battles. Amara wanted the truth exposed: the clerk's prejudice, the officer's brutality, the town's complicity. She thought of the teenage girl filming, the young man who'd recognized her. They were her allies, the ones who'd amplify her voice. By morning, the story had exploded. National news outlets picked it up, headlines screaming, "Billionaire tied to tree in racist police blunder." Clips from the park went viral. The image of Amara bound to the oak tree, a searing indictment of Willow Creek's police. Protesters gathered outside the station, chanting her name. The jewelry store issued a frantic apology, claiming the clerk had misinterpreted the situation. Amara didn't buy it. She'd seen the clerk's eyes, the way they'd hardened at her skin before her status. Elena arrived at noon, her presence a storm of efficiency. She met Amara at a local diner, away from the station's prying eyes. "This is bigger than a lawsuit," Elena said, her laptop open to a flood of social media posts. "You've got a movement here. People are angry, and they're listening." Amara sipped her coffee, her mind sharp. "I don't want a movement for me. I want it for the ones who don't have my resources. The ones who don't walk away." Elena nodded, her eyes gleaming. "Then we hit them where it hurts. Publicly, legally, relentlessly." They strategized for hours, mapping out a plan. Amara would give a press conference, not to play the victim, but to demand accountability. Elena would file charges against Holt, Reed, and the department, citing civil rights violations. They'd also target the jewelry store, whose negligence had sparked the ordeal. But Amara had another idea: fund, seeded with her own money, to support victims of racial profiling. She'd call it the Legacy Fund, after her grandmother's resilience. It would be her way of turning pain into purpose. As they left the diner, A small crowd waited outside, some holding signs, "Justice for Amara" and "End Racism Now." The teenage girl from the park was there, her phone still in hand. She ran up, breathless. "Ms. Cole, I'm Tasha. I posted the video. I wanted you to know we're with you." Amara smiled, her heart swelling. "Tasha, you're the reason this won't be buried." "Thank you." Tasha beamed, her eyes bright with hope. But the fight was just beginning. Holt and Reed were back at the station, backed by a union lawyer who was already spinning the narrative, a miscommunication blown out of proportion. Chief Carter was rallying the town's old guard, whispering about outside agitators stirring trouble. Amara knew the real battle was coming not just against two cops, but against a system that shielded them. She straightened her shoulders, ready for the storm. The press conference was set for noon in front of the Willow Creek Courthouse, a modest brick building dwarfed by the media frenzy. Satellite trucks lined the street, reporters jostling for position, their cameras trained on the makeshift podium. Amara stood beside Elena, her navy suit impeccable, her expression a blend of resolve and restrained fury. The crowd was a sea of faces: supporters, skeptics, and curious locals, their murmurs a low hum under the midday sun. Tasha was there, front and center, her phone ready to stream. Amara felt the weight of their eyes, but she was no stranger to pressure. She'd faced hostile boardrooms and cutthroat competitors. This was different, but she was ready. Elena spoke first, her voice crisp and commanding. What happened to Amara Cole was not a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate act of racial profiling, enabled by a system that protects its own. We're filing a federal lawsuit against Officers Holt and Reed, the Willow Creek Police Department, and the jewelry store that set this in motion. This isn't just about one woman, it's about justice for all who've been wronged. The crowd erupted in applause, though some locals stood stone-faced, arms crossed. Amara stepped to the mic, her voice steady but charged with emotion. 2 days ago, I was tied to a tree, accused of stealing what I created. I'm not here to tell you my story for sympathy. I'm here because this happens every day to people without my resources, my platform. I was lucky. Others aren't. This isn't just about might, it's about the black men, women, and children who face this country's prejudice and don't get a press conference. I'm fighting for them. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. And I won't stop until the system changes. The response was electric. Cheers rose, signs waved, and Tasha's live stream surged with comments. Preach. And we stand with Amara. But not everyone was swayed. A group of counter-protesters, led by a man in a red cap, shouted, "Cops did their job. And she's playing the victim." Amara ignored them, but their words stung, a reminder of the divide she was up against. Elena leaned in, whispering, "Keep going. You're reaching the ones who matter." The conference ended with questions from reporters, some probing, others sympathetic. One asked, "Ms. Cole, do you think this was just about race?" Amara's answer was unflinching. It was about race, power, and a system that assumes guilt based on skin. But I'm not here to hate. I'm here to heal. Her words landed like a thunderclap, the crowd roaring in support. As she stepped down, Tasha rushed forward, hugging her. "You're my hero," the girl whispered. Amara smiled, but her mind was already on the next step. Back at the station, Holt and Reed were in a closed-door meeting with Chief Carter and their union lawyer, a slick man named Greg Larson. Larson was building a defense, claiming the officers acted on reasonable suspicion based on the clerk's call. The rope was a last resort, he argued to Carter, who nodded grimly. She resisted, made a scene, Reed, still shaken, said little, but Holt was defiant. "She's turning this into a circus," he muttered. "We were doing our job." Carter leaned forward, his voice low. "You better hope that holds up. The feds are sniffing around, and Walsh isn't letting this go." Outside, the town was fracturing. Protests grew, with signs demanding fire Holt and Reed. Local businesses, fearing backlash, began distancing themselves from the police. The jewelry store, now under fire, announced the clerk's suspension, but it wasn't enough. Social media kept the story alive, with influencers and activists amplifying Amara's words. A viral thread by a civil rights lawyer detailed Willow Creek's history of racial profiling, citing cases that had never made headlines. Amara read it on her phone, her resolve hardening. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was unearthing a town's buried truths. Elena's team dug deeper, uncovering records of complaints against Holt, most dismissed or ignored. Reed, it turned out, had a cleaner record but was known to follow Holt's lead without question. The jewelry store's security footage, obtained through a subpoena, showed the clerk's panic the moment Amara entered, his hands shaking as he dialed 911. It was damning, but not enough to topple the system. Amara knew they needed more a witness, a whistleblower, something to crack the department open. That evening, Amara met Tasha at the diner, wanting to thank her properly. Tasha was nervous but proud, her phone now a symbol of her courage. "I didn't know it'd get this big," she admitted. Amara smiled. "You gave me a voice when I was silenced. That's power, Tasha." The girl's eyes shone, but she hesitated, then whispered, "I heard something. My cousin works at the station. He says Reed's scared, wants to talk, but Holt's keeping him quiet." Amara's pulse quickened. This was the break they needed. She thanked Tasha, promising to keep her safe, and called Elena immediately. The fight was about to get uglier, but Amara was ready to face it head-on. The diner's neon sign flickered as Amara and Elena huddled in a corner booth, their voices low. Tasha's tip about Reed was a spark, but they needed to fan it into a flame. Elena's eyes gleamed with the thrill of the chase. "If Reed's wavering, we can flip him," she said, tapping her pen on a legal pad. "He's young, inexperienced. Holt's the anchor holding him down. We get Reed to talk. We get the truth about the department." Amara nodded, her mind racing. "But we need to protect Tasha's cousin. No leaks. No retaliation." Elena agreed, already texting her team to arrange a discreet meeting. By the next morning, Elena's investigators had tracked down Tasha's cousin, Jamal, a janitor at the station. He was nervous, his hands fidgeting as he met them in a park far from Willow Creek's prying eyes. "I don't want trouble," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "But Reed's been acting weird. Keeps muttering about messed up calls Holt made before. I heard him on the phone, saying he didn't sign up for this." Jamal paused, his voice dropping. "Holt's got dirt on him, something about a bar fight Reed got in last year. Holt covered it up, so Reed owes him." Amara's heart sank. Loyalty born of blackmail was a hard bond to break, but it was also a crack in Holt's armor. Elena pressed Jamal for details, promising anonymity. "We'll keep you out of this," she assured him. "Just tell us when Reed's alone." Jamal nodded, giving them a time late that night, when Holt would be off duty. Amara felt a surge of hope, but also dread. This was a high-stakes gamble. If Reed didn't talk, or worse, if he warned Holt, the case could stall. That night, Elena and Amara waited in an unmarked car outside the station. Reed emerged at midnight, his shoulders slumped, his face pale under the streetlights. Elena approached him, her demeanor calm but firm. Officer Reed, we need to talk. Off the record. Reed froze, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. I don't know nothing, he stammered, but his voice betrayed him. Elena didn't back down. You know what happened to MS. Cole was wrong. You can make it right. Talk to us, or this buries you too. Reed hesitated, then nodded, climbing into the car. Amara watched him, her emotions a tangle of anger and pity. He was complicit, but he was also a pawn in Holt's game. Why'd you let it happen? She asked, her voice steady but piercing. Reed looked down, his hands shaking. Holt said it was protocol. Said she aware resisting. I didn't know who you were. I just followed orders. Amara's jaw tightened. Orders to tie a woman to a tree. You knew it was wrong. Reed's eyes met hers, filled with shame. I did. But Holt, he's got this hold on the department. On me. I messed up once, and he's got it over me. I'm sorry. MS. Cole. Amara leaned forward, her voice low. Sorry doesn't fix this. But telling the truth might. What else has Holt done? Reed swallowed hard, then spilled. He described a pattern Holt targeting Black and Latino residents, falsifying reports, intimidating witnesses. Reed had seen it, but stayed silent, fearing Holt's wrath and the department's loyalty. Elena recorded every word, her face unreadable. When Reed finished, she handed him her card. You testify. We protect you. You don't. You're on your own. Reed nodded, his face a mask of fear and resolve. As he left, Amara felt a shift. The truth was coming to light, but it came with a cost. Reed's testimony would shake Willow Creek, but it would also make him a target. She thought of Tasha, Jamal, the others who'd risked everything to help her. This wasn't just her fight anymore. The next day, Elena filed a motion to include Reed's statement in the lawsuit, keeping his identity under wraps for now. The news sent shockwaves through the town. Protests swelled, with hundreds marching through Main Street, their signs bolder, End police racism. And Holt must go. The counter-protesters grew louder too, their rhetoric sharper, accusing Amara of dividing the town. Chief Carter issued a statement, calling the allegations unsubstantiated and vowing to stand by our officers. But cracks were forming. Two more officers, emboldened by Reed, came forward with stories of Holt's abuses, their statements anonymous but damning. Amara spent the day with her team, planning the Legacy Fund's launch. She wanted it to be more than a Gesturia lifeline for victims, a resource for legal aid, education, and community rebuilding. She pledged $10 million of her own money, with plans to raise more. At a community meeting that evening, she spoke to a packed church, her voice resonating. This fund isn't about charity. It's about justice. It's about giving power back to those who've had it stolen. The crowd rose, their applause thunderous. Tasha, sitting in the front row, wiped tears from her eyes. But as Amara left the church, a brick sailed through the air, shattering a window near her head. The crowd screamed, scattering as Elena pulled Amara to safety. In the chaos, Amara saw a figure in a red cap slip away, his face obscured. The message was clear, the fight was far from over, and the stakes were rising. The brick's impact echoed in Amara's mind as she sat in Elena's office the next morning, the shattered church window a stark reminder of the town's volatility. Elena was on the phone, coordinating with state police for Amara's protection. This wasn't random, she said, hanging up. Someone's trying to scare you off. Amara's eyes were steel. They'll have to try harder. She'd faced threats before, competitors trying to sabotage her business, anonymous letters after high-profile deals. But this was personal. A direct attack on her stand against Willow Creek's rot. The lawsuit was gaining traction. Reed's testimony, combined with the other officers' statements, painted a damning picture of Holt's reign. Elena's team uncovered more falsified arrest reports, complaints buried by Chief Carter, even a case where Holt had roughed up a black teenager, only for the charges to vanish. The jewelry store's security footage was now public. The clerk's panicked 911 call fueling outrage. Suspicious black woman touching expensive jewelry, he'd said, his voice trembling with bias. The store's corporate office, desperate to save face, offered Amara a settlement. She refused. This isn't about money, she told Elena. It's about accountability. The town was a powder keg. Protests grew daily, with national activists joining local voices. Tasha's videos had become a rallying cry, her follower count soaring as she documented the movement. But the counter-protesters were relentless, their signs venomous. Protect our cops. And Amara's a fraud. Holt, now suspended, was spotted at a local bar, rallying supporters. She's tearing this town apart, he slurred to a reporter, his words picked up by a hidden mic. The clip went viral, further eroding his defense. Amara's team worked around the clock, preparing for the federal hearing. Elena had secured a judge known for her no-nonsense rulings on civil rights cases. But the real battle was in Willow Creek's heart. Amara met with community leaders, black and white, to build support for the Legacy Fund. At a town hall, she faced a packed room, some faces hopeful, others hostile. I'm not here to divide you, she said, her voice steady. I'm here to build something better for all of us. A white woman in the back stood, her voice shaking. My son's a cop. He's not like Holt. But I see what you're saying. We need change. Others nodded, a small but crucial shift. Reed, meanwhile, was crumbling under pressure. He'd agreed to testify, but was paranoid, convinced Holt's allies were watching him. Elena arranged for him to meet a federal agent, ensuring his safety. During the meeting, Reed revealed more. Holt had a network of loyalists, officers who'd covered for him for years. They're scared of him, Reed said, his voice low. But they're more scared of losing their jobs. Amara listened to the recording, her heart heavy. This wasn't just about Holt, it was about a culture that enabled him. The hearing was set for the following week, but Amara couldn't shake the feeling that Holt was planning something. Late one night, she got a call from Tasha. Her voice panicked. MS. Cole, someone's following me. I saw a guy in a red cap near my house. Amara's blood ran cold. She told Tasha to stay with a friend and called Elena, who alerted the state police. The next morning, they found graffiti on Tasha's street, "Snitches die." Amara's resolve hardened. She wouldn't let fear win. She visited Tasha, bringing her to a safe house arranged by Elena. You're brave, Tasha, Amara said, hugging her. You're changing things. Tasha nodded, her eyes red but determined. I just want my town to be better. Amara smiled, seeing her younger self in Tasha's fire. She pledged to fund Tasha's college education, a small gesture for a girl who'd risked everything. As the hearing loomed, Amara prepared her testimony, her words a weapon honed by years of fighting for her place in a world that often rejected her. She thought of her grandmother, who'd faced worse with less, her stories of resilience now Amara's armor. The Legacy Fund was gaining support, with donations pouring in from across the country. But the brick, the graffiti, Holt's defiance, they were reminders that justice came at a cost. Amara was ready to pay it, but she worried for Tasha, Jamal, Reed, those caught in the crossfire. The night before the hearing, Amara stood alone in her hotel room, staring at a photo of the Star of Legacy necklace. It wasn't just a jewel, it was her history, her fight, her promise to never bow. She whispered to herself, "This is for you, Grandma." The battle was far from over, but Amara was ready to face it, her heart a diamond forged in fire. The federal courthouse in Atlanta was a stark contrast to Willow Creek's modest square, its marble halls echoing with the weight of justice. Amara sat in the plaintiff's seat, her navy suit crisp, her expression unyielding. Elena was beside her, a stack of evidence files ready. The gallery was packed reporters, activists, locals from Willow Creek, and Tasha, who'd insisted on coming despite the risks. Holt and Reed sat across the room, their union lawyer whispering furiously. Chief Carter was there too, his face a mask of defiance. The judge, a stern woman named Evelyn Brooks, entered, her presence silencing the room. Elena opened with a blistering statement, laying out the case: racial profiling, excessive force, a department complicit in Holt's abuses. She played the jewelry store footage, the clerk's 911 call a damning prelude to the park's brutality. The viral video of Amara tied to the tree drew gasps from the gallery, even from those who'd seen it online. Tasha's footage, raw and unfiltered, showed Holt's sneer, Reed's hesitation, the crowd's chaos. Elena's voice was a blade. This wasn't a mistake. It was a system at work, one that targeted Amara Cole for her skin, not her actions. Holt's lawyer, Larson, countered with a slick defense, painting the officers as overworked public servants acting on a credible tip. Ms. Cole resisted, escalating the situation. He claimed, ignoring the footage that showed her calm and composed. He questioned her presence in Willow Creek, implying she'd invited scrutiny by flaunting wealth in a small town. Amara's jaw tightened, but she stayed silent, letting Elena dismantle the lies. The lawyer's tactics were predictable: deflect, distort, demonize. Reed's testimony was the turning point. He took the stand, his hands trembling, his eyes avoiding Holt's glare. Under Elena's questioning, he recounted the incident, admitting he'd followed Holt's orders despite doubts. "I knew it was wrong," he said, his voice cracking. "But Holt said it was protocol, said she was dangerous." The gallery murmured, and Judge Brooks leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "Officer Reed, are you saying you acted against your judgment because of pressure from Officer Holt?" Reed nodded, his face pale. "Yes, ma'am. And not just this time. It's how things work there." Elena pressed further, drawing out Holt's history of targeting minorities, burying complaints, intimidating subordinates. Reed's words were a floodgate, each revelation eroding the department's defense. Larson objected, calling Reed's testimony speculative, but Brooks overruled him. "Let the witness speak," she said sharply. Amara watched Holt, his face reddening, his fists clenched. He was unraveling, his power slipping away in the face of truth. Amara's testimony was next. She stood, her voice clear and resonant, recounting the humiliation, the rope, the crowd's mixed reactions. "I'm not here for pity," she said, her eyes sweeping the room. "I'm here because what happened to me happens to others who don't have my voice. I was tied to a tree, accused of stealing my own creation, because of my skin. That's not a mistake, it's a choice, one this system has made for too long." The gallery was silent, her words a mirror held up to Willow Creek's soul. The hearing stretched into the afternoon, with witnesses from the community testifying about Holt's abuses. A black shopkeeper described being harassed for years, his complaints ignored. A Latino teenager spoke of a false arrest, his record cleared only after community pressure. Tasha took the stand, her voice steady despite her nerves. describing how she'd filmed the incident to show the world what's real. Her courage drew tears from some in the gallery, including Amara. As the day ended, Judge Brooks adjourned the hearing, promising a ruling within days. Outside, the media swarmed, but Amara's focus was on Tasha, who hugged her tightly. "You did it," Tasha whispered. Amara shook her head. "We did it. You, me, Jamal. Read everyone who spoke up." But the victory felt fragile. Holt's allies were still out there, and the graffiti on Tasha's street was a fresh wound. Amara knew the ruling wouldn't end the fight, it would only sharpen it. That night, Amara launched the Legacy Fund at a packed Atlanta ballroom, the event live-streamed to thousands. She announced the first grants legal aid for profiling victims, scholarships for youth like Tasha, community programs to rebuild trust. Donors pledged millions, inspired by her story. But as she spoke, her phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Holt's gone off the grid. Stay vigilant." Amara's heart sank, but she kept her smile, her voice unwavering. The fight was hers, but it was bigger than her. She wouldn't back down. The Atlanta skyline glittered outside Amara's hotel window, but her mind was on Willow Creek, where Holt's disappearance cast a shadow over the victory. Judge Brooks' ruling came 3 days after the hearing, a seismic blow to the town's old guard. Holt and Reed were found liable for civil rights violations, with Holt facing criminal charges for excessive force and falsifying reports. The Willow Creek Police Department was ordered to undergo federal oversight, with mandatory training and a review of past complaints. The jewelry store settled out of court, agreeing to fund anti-bias training and a public apology. Chief Carter resigned, his legacy tarnished. Amara stood at a podium in Willow Creek's park, the same oak tree behind her, now a symbol of resilience. The crowd was smaller but fervent locals, activists, Tasha and her family, even a few former skeptics. "This tree saw injustice," Amara said, her voice carrying over the quiet. "But it also saw courage, yours, mine, ours. The Legacy Fund is our promise to turn pain into progress. We're not done, but we're starting." She announced a new grant for Willow Creek, funding a youth center where Tasha would lead media workshops, her videos a beacon for change. The applause was warm, but Amara's eyes scanned the crowd, wary of Holt's absence. Elena had hired private investigators, who traced him to a nearby town, where he'd been spotted with known agitators. The red-capped man from the protests was among them, his identity still unknown. Amara refused to live in fear, but she tightened her security, knowing the fight had made enemies. Reed, now cooperating fully, had been placed in protective custody, his testimony crucial to Holt's prosecution. The Legacy Fund grew, its impact rippling beyond Willow Creek. Amara traveled the country, speaking at rallies, meeting victims of profiling, their stories fueling her resolve. She funded legal battles, scholarships, and community programs, each grant a step toward justice. Tasha thrived, her videos now a platform for youth voices, her college fund secure. Jamal, still anonymous, took a new job, safe from retaliation. The town began to heal, slowly, with new leadership in the police department and community forums fostering dialogue. One evening, months later, Amara returned to Willow Creek for the youth center's opening. The oak tree stood tall, a plaque at its base reading, "The Legacy Tree, for Justice, for Healing." Tasha cut the ribbon, her smile radiant. Amara watched, her heart full but heavy. Holt was still at large, a fugitive with a warrant, his allies quieter but not gone. The red-capped man had vanished, but his graffiti lingered in her memory, "Snitches die." She pushed the thought aside, focusing on the laughter of kids exploring the center. That night, Amara sat alone, holding the Star of Legacy necklace, its diamonds catching the light. She thought of her grandmother, who'd faced lynch mobs and lived to tell her story. "You taught me to stand," Amara whispered, her eyes on the jewels. She'd faced a modern mob prejudice, power, fear, and stood taller. The fight wasn't over, but she'd sparked a movement, one that would outlive her. As she stepped outside, the oak tree loomed in the moonlight, its branches a silent witness. A breeze stirred, carrying the faint sound of Tasha's laughter from the center. Amara smiled, her resolve unbroken. She'd been tied to that tree, but she'd broken free, and in doing so, she'd freed others. The system wasn't fixed, but it was cracking, and she'd keep pushing until it shattered. For her grandmother, for Tasha, for every name unspoken, Amara Cole would fight on, a diamond forged in the fire of justice.